Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Water Wednesday. This segment is a Water Wednesday Ask Extension about reclaimed water. My name is Yiling Zhuang. I'm the Water Resources Regional Specialized Agent in IFAS Extension Central District. If this is the first time you tune in on Facebook and watch our Water Wednesday live talk, you may wonder what is Water Wednesday. So for those who have been watching us for a year, you already know Water Wednesday is we have a webinar every month, and we also have this casual conversations on Facebook Live. So the idea is every Wednesday we'll live stream a 30-minute talk or conversation about the one particular issue of water, and it's the water in Florida, and just want to share some science-based, research-based knowledge with everyone. And this month it's the Reclaim Water Month, and as the Water Wednesday Ask Extension segment, I invited a state specialist and also assistant professor in soil and water science department, Dr. Mary Lusk, to give us a quick overview of reclaimed water. So if you are viewing this live talk, feel free to put any questions in the chat box. We are here to answer any questions you may have about the reclaimed water. Now let's welcome Dr. Lusk.
Thank you, and thanks for those of you who are joining on Facebook. Really appreciate you being here today. I am working from home today with a little bit of a head cold, but otherwise feeling okay and happy to be here today to talk to you about reclaimed water. I'm going to share my screen really quick and start talking a little bit about reclaimed water. All right, so let's start with just how reclaimed water is produced. Reclaimed water is also called recycled water, or sometimes you will hear it referred to as reuse water. And I put a picture here of the purple pipes because in Florida and in many parts of the world, reclaimed water is always transported and carried to users in purple pipes, and that's to keep it distinct from drinking water. Reclaimed water is simply former domestic wastewater that has been treated and disinfected at a wastewater treatment plant. So by wastewater and wastewater treatment plants, we mean exactly that. It is the domestic wastewater that comes from your house, from things like toilets and bathtubs and sinks and washing machines. All of that wastewater that leaves your home and your community goes to a wastewater treatment plant. At the wastewater treatment plant, that water is collected into big bins and basins, and it is allowed to settle. After it has been allowed to settle, we call that primary treatment. That's just where all of the solids settle out to the bottom. And after that, we then go to secondary treatment, which is the next step in treating that wastewater so we can remove the contaminants that are in it. That's where the water that gets left behind is then chemically and or biologically treated to remove impurities in it. And sometimes in Florida and in other parts of the world, there is an additional step after that secondary treatment called advanced treatment. And that's just further treatment to further remove harmful chemicals and pathogens that could make us sick or that could be harmful to the environment in some way. But in all cases, we have at least secondary treatment, which is normally very good treatment of that wastewater. And in Florida, to be considered reclaimed water, by Florida statutes, that water has to have received at least secondary treatment and then basic disinfection at the wastewater treatment facility. So if you have reclaimed water coming to your home, most likely for irrigation purposes, then know that that water has been secondarily treated and that it was disinfected at the wastewater treatment facility before being piped in one of those purple pipes to your community for reuse. And I sometimes get asked if reclaimed water is the same as gray water, and the answer to that is no. Gray water is wastewater from households or businesses. It contains no fecal contamination, so it's just the water from things like laundry and your bathtub and the showers, not from the toilet. And it's reused at the place of origin, such as in your home or your backyard garden. So this would be, so gray water would be like taking water from your bathtub, and instead of letting that drain down and become part of the waste stream, collecting it and reusing it, say, to flush your toilets or to water your backyard garden. That's what gray water is. And in contrast to that, reclaimed water goes from the house to the wastewater treatment facility where it is treated so contaminants can be removed, and then it is sent back to a community for reuse. How is reclaimed water used in Florida and internationally? It's not just for irrigation. That is certainly the most common usage that we have for it in Florida, but there are many other things that we can do as well with reclaimed water. This diagram shows you some of those options, and we use almost all of these, if not all of them, in Florida. Number one on this list up here, you see the factory up here at the top. This would be industrial reuses, so sometimes it can be sent to factories and other large industries for applications such as cooling water, used in manufacturing processes. Number two here, you see the picture of the wetlands with the duck. We can use reclaimed water to hydrate our wetlands. So if we have a wetland system in the state that for some reason is not receiving the water volume that it needs to maintain a healthy wetland ecosystem, we can supplement those wetlands sometimes with reclaimed water. Number three, pointing here to the farm, we do irrigate numerous crops in Florida with reclaimed water. As I'll talk to you in just a minute, we cannot irrigate food crops that are not going to be skinned, peeled, or cooked before they are eaten. And that's just to protect human health from any possible pathogens that might be in that reclaimed water. But we do use it to irrigate at the soil level and where the water is not coming in contact with any fruits or vegetables. Four here is recharge basins. So sometimes reclaimed water after it leaves the treatment plant can just be sent to infiltrate into the soil, where it will then percolate down and supply and replenish our groundwater resources. Number five is here is going to a city for different types of city applications, maybe decorative fountains or water features that you sometimes see in the city. Six is going to a water treatment plant. This would be called potable reuse. We are seeing more and more of this in Florida, where that reclaimed water is then sent to a drinking water treatment facility, undergoes further treatment for removal of any impurities, and then can be used for drinking. And again, we're seeing more and more of that in Florida. As we face water scarcity, we need to do that. Number seven and eight are also applications of, again, taking that water and putting it into the groundwater and then pulling it back out later to use it for some type of application, such as to send to cities for people to use or to send to farms for irrigation. All right, so how is reclaimed water used globally to locally? These are some usage trends just for your information. Worldwide, the worldwide leader in reusing treated wastewater or reclaimed water is the United States, followed by Saudi Arabia and then Egypt. You can see some other countries there that also lead in using reclaimed water. When we look just at the United States, Florida is a national leader. We use more reclaimed water than any other state. We're using quite a bit more than California and exceptionally a bit more than all other states. If you want to look at it on a county level, so the counties in Florida in purple in this map are the ones that use the most reclaimed water. You can see that corresponds roughly with our major urban areas like the Tampa Bay urban area, Orlando, Tallahassee areas. So in most cases corresponds to major urban areas. And what's in reclaimed water? Are there things in there that we need to be concerned about if we're using it, say, for irrigating your lawn or your home garden? Well, it can contain elevated levels of salts and other inorganic compounds, and this is just because the wastewater stream has a large amount of those compounds in it. So there's a lot of sodium and chloride and boron, and those are not completely removed by the wastewater treatment process. So your reclaimed water can have elevated levels of salts. And this picture that you see here is a mango tree that has been irrigated with reclaimed water, and the damage that you see on the leaves of that tree is due to excess salts that are built up in the soil from irrigating with reclaimed water. So if you have reclaimed water that you are using on your home landscape, do make sure to use salt-tolerant plant species. And if you're interested in getting a list of salt-tolerant plant species, you can Google this one right here that I've indicated in the picture here from University of Florida, IFAS Extension, salt-tolerant plants for Florida. That's a very good list of landscape plants that can withstand elevated levels of salt in the soil. Reclaimed water can also have excess nutrients in it. These would be nitrogen and phosphorus. And while the jury is still out on research on this, we know that since that reclaimed water does contain some nitrogen and phosphorus in it, it is very likely that it can offset some of your fertilizer requirements in your lawn. So if you are irrigating your lawn with reclaimed water, you very likely can reduce or maybe even eliminate the need for any other fertilizer applications to your turf grass or to your ornamental plants in your landscape. To wrap it up, just some quick final thoughts before I take questions from you. Can you over irrigate with reclaimed water? Well, of course you can. Remember that overwatering is overwatering is overwatering. So reclaimed water use is not restricted in some parts of the state, but its users should still apply only the recommended irrigation rates, which is like 3/4 to 1 inch per week. Use a rain sensor if you have one or a shut-off device so that you're not irrigating during storms. You're not over irrigating with that reclaimed water, because you can still overwater and you can still cause damage to your landscape by adding too much water, even though it's reclaimed water and it may be highly abundant and cheap for you. Also, some final thoughts. We just need to make sure that as homeowners, we avoid overspray of reclaimed water. And by overspray, I mean that irrigating like the sidewalks and the streets, like you see in this picture here, just because, again, that reclaimed water can have excess nutrients in it, nitrogen and phosphorus. Those are the things that feed algal blooms in our surface water bodies in Florida. We want to do everything we can to prevent the transport of those nutrients to our coastal waters, to our streams and our rivers and our bays and our estuaries. So use that water wisely, keep your sprinkler system tuned and maintained so that you're not irrigating the streets and the sidewalks. Remember, sidewalks don't grow, streets don't grow, only the turf grass grows, so only the turf grass needs watering. All right, so that was a very quick overview, and I'm going to let Elin chime in and bring up any questions that you may have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mary, for this lightning talk, get everyone on speed, because some people have that question, like, what is reclaimed water? What's the difference between reclaimed water and gray water? So this quick introduction, it's very helpful. And let me check the Facebook. So please put your questions in the comment section, so we will answer your questions. And I did collect a few questions in advance. Some people wondering reclaimed water. When you already addressed it's salt tolerant, like what kind of plants I should use, I should plant with reclaimed water. So I put a link, it's salt tolerant plants. I put that link in the chat box. So another question is, how do we know the water quality of reclaimed water?
Yeah, that is an excellent question, and I wish it was easier for consumers to get an answer to that. The only way that you really can get at that is to call your reclaimed water provider and ask them for any information that they have on reclaimed water quality. They should have that data, and they should be able to send you that pretty easily. I wish that it was like searchable on the internet, but in most cases it's not. There are a few providers that if you start Googling around, you can find their reclaimed water quality reports online, but most of them don't have that readily searchable for the public. That being said, it should be data that they should have no problem giving you if you call them and ask for it.
Yeah, that's the question. Homeowners usually wonder because the salinity is high, and some term I heard it's people call reclaimed water still the poo-poo water. So they are very concerned about the pathogens in reclaimed water. So anywhere like they can contact their local providers to find the water quality for that particular supplier. So any general water quality standard for reclaimed water, so like drinking water, it has 80 primary drinking water parameters. So how about reclaimed water? Do they have a table like that?
So there is some information on that, and I'm afraid I don't have any of those numbers on the top of my head. We do have some University of Florida Extension publications that do produce some of those numbers, and I'm sure you could probably Google reclaimed water University of Florida Extension and find those. And I'm sure if you wanted to email me, I'd be happy to share some of those with you. My email address is just mary.lusk, L-U-S-K, @ufl.edu. I'd be happy to share those. I will say, Yilin mentioned pathogens. There can be pathogens in reclaimed water, but there are no documented cases in Florida of human illness occurring from interaction with reclaimed water. So keep that in mind. I mean, we know that there could be pathogens there, but there's no documented cases of it ever being a problem. That being said, don't drink it. It's not for drinking. It's only for outdoor irrigation use, and again, not for direct contact with edible food crops. I wouldn't, let the kids swim and play in it either. So don't run the sprinklers and let the kids run in it. Things like that. But so err on the side of caution, but know as well that we have no documented cases of illness from contact with that water in Florida.
That's a really good reminder. So it's there's a known illness caused passengers, but that doesn't still be cautious. Don't water it on edibles. I have another question here. Let me read it. Does overspray of reclaimed water reach the Everglades? If so, is reclaimed water hurting the Everglades?
Could be. I have not seen direct research that shows that, but it absolutely could be. So anytime that overspray is allowed to flow down the streets, it becomes part of the stormwater network. And the stormwater networks are connected to ponds, and ponds are connected to other water bodies, downstream creeks and streams and bays and lakes. So certainly that could happen. Again, I'm not aware of anybody that's directly connected that to the Everglades, but I am certain that could happen. And, it's just a reason why that we have to be very careful with how we use that water.
Yeah, I just like you said, it's reclaimed water, but you can still over irrigate it. So always no matter what's the source, fresh water, reclaimed water, always conserve water. That's also what I noticed. Some neighborhoods, they are on reclaimed water, and this homeowner says like, oh, it's reclaimed water. I can just, it's not limited. Because some areas, because reclaimed water is exempted from water restrictions. So I noticed some neighborhoods, they water, like some homes, they water their yard with reclaimed water every day. So just like it's reclaimed water, that water conservation kind of slipped away. So it's always a good reminder of water conservation. Another question is also I collected before this live talk. So quote by quote, reclaimed water is poo-poo water. Why is poo-poo water more expensive than our drinking water?
So it can be more expensive sometimes, just because of the treatment that we have to give that water before it can be used by the public. And it requires extra infrastructure to pipe it. Like I said, it has to be sent out in those purple pipes. So it has to have an entirely separate conveyance system than drinking water. We keep those two completely separate. Drinking water goes through one type of pipe, reclaimed goes to another type of pipe. So it's going through different systems, and that requires construction and a lot of infrastructure. So that's why it can be more expensive.
And another question is, just want to know your thoughts on direct reclaimed water reuse. Like some states or some countries already doing the direct water reuse. Just how that looks like in Florida.
For potable reuse, is that what you're asking about? Yes, so there was new legislation in Florida that was just passed last year that is putting new emphasis on using reclaimed water for potable reuse. That is reusing it for drinking water. Now, there are two ways that we can do that. One is called direct potable reuse, where pretty much reclaimed water is sent right back to the drinking water treatment facility, goes through that drinking water treatment plant, and then back to communities for drinking water. The other one is called indirect potable reuse, where we take that reclaimed water and maybe put it into a river, and then it's in that river, which is called in the legislature an environmental buffer. So it's in that river for a little bit, and then it's withdrawn from the river or the groundwater, whatever the case may be, and then treated at the water treatment facility for drinking water. So two ways that we can do that. Right now, we only have indirect potable reuse in Florida, and we have limited amounts of that. But our reuse for potable drinking water is growing in the state. There's a couple of pilot projects right now. There's one in Altamont Springs. There's one in the Tampa Bay area. Where we're looking at that and investigating that. And I really predict in the next 5, 10, 20 years, we're going to start seeing that more and more. And the reason is because we do have water supply shortages in Florida. Doesn't make much sense because we sure get a lot of rain, but you know what else we have? Huge population growth. So with the population stresses that we have in the state, we're not going to have the groundwater supplies that we need to meet the drinking water needs of the population. And so there's new legislation encouraging us to use reclaimed water for drinking water.
Thank you, Mary. My computer was acting, so all of a sudden I lost the sound. Yeah, I really like your last comment. It's because some people think Florida, 3 sides surrounded by water. Why? Like we have a shortage issue. Why we need to conserve water? It's always a good reminder. Like even Florida with because we have seasonal rainfalls, so water is not always readily available, and we are facing the water shortage in some areas. So this is always a good reminder. It's like, again, go back to reclaimed water. Even your reclaimed water doesn't mean you can use it unlimitedly. And I'm checking my Facebook one more time. I don't see any questions here. I think you got everyone well covered. Thank you so much, Mary. And I hope your head cold will get much better. And thank you so much for joining us, even you're not feeling so well.
Thank you. I was happy to be here today.
Thank you, and hope you all enjoy the rest of your Wednesday afternoon. Bye now.
Bye-bye, everyone.